started. So welcome to this week's CybHER Conversation program brought to you by Peraton. My name is Katie Shuck, and I am the CybHER Chief of Strategy. I have with me Dr. Pam Rowland, one of CybHER's co-founders, along with Dr. Ashley Podorotsky, who's unable to join us today. And I have Kanthi Narukonda, who is a fellow graduate student at Dakota State University and CybHER's Chief of Operations. We are so excited that you're able to join us as we work with CybHER to motivate, educate, and empower girls in cybersecurity. We love going in and working with any K-12 students, and we hope that you'll help share this program with others. I do want to remind you that you can ask questions at any point during the conversation today by going down to the Q&A that you'll find at the bottom of the screen, and you ask that, and we will get to the question and answer period in just a little bit. But I also want to just thank Peraton for being the sponsor of this program. And so you can find out more information about Peraton and our partnership with them on our website at cyber.org. This week for our conversation, we are so excited to have Christine White with us, who is the Manager of Cybersecurity Governance at Home Depot. So I'm sure everybody is familiar with this store, which is all over the place. And so I without further ado, I am just going to hand it over to you, Christine.
Okay, thank you, Katie, appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Happy Women's History Month. I don't know if you all can see, but I decided to wear my RBG shirt just to celebrate one of my favorite women in history because it's an exciting month. So again, thanks for having me. A little bit about me. Yes, as Katie said, I am the Manager of Cybersecurity Governance at the Home Depot. What does that mean? Basically, we set the rules of the road for securing our information assets at the Home Depot. And by information assets, I mean anything from laptops to servers to data, what have you. So my area is net new in 2019. So I got to blaze a trail a little bit. When we started my area, I had moved over from compliance. I'll talk about that as I go through my story, but I moved over and said, hey, I'll take over this new area. So what we've done basically in the past almost 2 years is my team has started a steering committee for cybersecurity that is headed by our CISO and includes a whole bunch of his peers to make sure that we are not doing cyber in a vacuum. So we've got the steering committee. The next thing we did was we decided to get everybody on the same path for the frameworks they wanted to use, be it NIST, CSF, or CIS Top 20. We were kind of scattered as an org. So, hey, everybody, let's pick the 1, 2 we're going to use and everyone move in that direction. So we did that. And then we rewrote all of our cybersecurity policies from scratch. It was a huge lift and shift that we did very successfully. And right now we're working on documenting the controls to meet those requirements that are in the cybersecurity policy. So basically the policies, we said the what, like what do we have to do as a company to secure our assets, and the controls are the how. So how do we literally do it, or what should we be doing to meet this requirement? And that's been a huge, huge effort because not only do we have to write them, you have to get somebody to stand up and own them. And that's always a challenge. So that is what we're currently working on. So how did I get here? I graduated with a business management degree with a concentration in HR, which I thought was going to be my future. So out of college, I worked for a temp agency. Basically, I helped place temps into jobs, and I randomly got selected to be in charge of computer training, light word processing, things like that folks would need for these types of temporary jobs. And I actually enjoyed it. I had no real skill in it, being a business major, but I knew how to use a computer. So I was like, oh, and it was kind of fun. So from there, I quickly jumped. I decided I wanted to be an applications trainer. So I worked for a company where I taught, I think I said in my bio, MS-DOS, really old, you can Google it. So I taught people that, basic, again, word processing, early versions of Word and Excel and PowerPoint and things like that. And that was a lot of fun. Like I actually enjoyed being a trainer, but I decided that it was kind of fair in that I was teaching people how to use these applications, mostly corporate people, companies paid to have you come and train a group of people, but I didn't have any practical experience. I learned it and I knew it, but I hadn't used it really anywhere. So I said, okay, I'm kind of digging IT. So let me see what I can do here. And I jumped ship there and I decided to get in the door somewhere at actually a brokerage firm, but I got in the door on the help desk. Thankless job. Thankless job. It is hard, but it gets your foot in the door and it is worthwhile. So I did that. And luckily I pretty quickly got plucked out of that into the same company and started in disaster recovery. So, and I'm a process person, so disaster recovery was a really good fit for me. It's very process oriented, do A, B, and C to make sure that you can recover your applications and systems in the event of a large scale disaster. A lot of documentation, a lot of organization there. So really, really good fit for me. So I did that for several years. And then my company got bought out several times and finally got bought out and closed the doors. So decided to run away from home, moved 1,200 miles from Connecticut to Atlanta. Highly recommend it, actually, just to get up and move. We had no plan, no prospects. We were just like, we are doing this, and we did it. And it was quite the fun experience. And I'm actually 15 years later, still here in Atlanta. At that point, we just decided, hey, let's go somewhere warmer. So we did, and took a couple weeks off and thought, let me decide what I want to do. And I just decided, hey, it makes the most sense to stick with DR. I enjoyed it. At the time, and probably still, it's a bit of a niche thing where not a lot of people do it. So if there's a job opening for it, not a lot of applicants. So I applied. Home Depot had an opening. I applied, I got the job. It was awesome. I did that actually for 8 years at the Home Depot. Again, I'm a process person, built a lot of documentation and things of that nature there. And then I was for 8 years. And then in 2014, the DR team moved to cybersecurity. So that was new and interesting. And I thought, okay, I got in there and I thought, well, maybe I want to do something different, like kind of opens up a whole new world here. And I've been doing this a long time and I'm getting a little complacent, not really learning anything. So luckily, when I moved into cybersecurity, there was a spot in digital forensics, which was super fun. That I only did that for about 6 months. I really kind of just helped with organization over there, but it was really interesting to, see what everyone was doing over in forensics, lots of, hands on keyboards, dark room kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun to learn. And then after I kind of helped with that, I moved into compliance because we had a need there. So I did that for a couple of years, got promoted to manager, took over a couple of teams, got DR back as the manager a couple of years later and kind of worked through all of that. And then, like I said, in 2019, this governance spot, net new team opened up and my manager said, hey, do you want to do this? And I said, sure, why not? So I moved over into governance, and then I gave you a little bit of background there and what I do there. And that's kind of where I am. And again, as I mentioned, I'm a process person. So one of the big things I just want to say is cyber has a place for all kinds of talents. You don't have to be hands-on keyboard. I am not. I've never been super technical. I'm a process person. I write a lot of documentation. I try and figure out the most efficient way for things to run. Like, that's my jam. And I have easily now, I'm on my fourth role in cyber, and I've loved them all. And there's always been a spot for me. So there's a good kind of blend there of if you're technical, great, do something in cyber. If you're not technical, that's okay too. You can still find something to do in cyber. And so that's why I think it's a great area to be in. Also, it's traditionally not, how do I want to say this? It's male, male dominated. So it's always good as women, like, hey, let's get our foot in the door there. There will be a spot for us. We just have to figure out what we want to do and find that spot. That's kind of how I feel about it. I stumbled into it, admittedly, because my team moved into cyber, but I've been there now for over 6 years. Yep, it'll be 7 years this summer. And I've loved it. And I just kind of keep finding new and interesting things to do in cyber. And I have no plans currently to leave it because I think there's just a lot to do there and a lot of improvement to make and a lot of places you can be. So that's really me in a nutshell.
Thank you for sharing your story with us, Christine, and we're so glad you're here on with us today. And I like what you said. Cyber has a place for everyone. You know, the really technical people, the not so technical people. You would think soft skills don't play a role, but they really do. Like being able to communicate well and effectively communicating. And I like what you said. So you were in disaster, or you worked with disaster recovery processes. So could you tell us a little bit more about disaster recovery, what you did, how you went about any procedure or?
Sure. So disaster recovery is tough unless you are a regulated industry like banking in particular. Banking has a lot of rules and regulation, right? Because there's a lot of financials involved there. Unless you are in one of that kind of industry, it's disaster recovery is kind of like it's insurance and people don't want to spend a lot of money for it. It's like, what are the chances we're going to have a disaster? So you really have to make it important to people. So that was kind of my role. When I showed up, we kind of had nothing. We had a couple of applications that were financial based in our company, payroll. Payroll is important. Like if we have a disaster and you can't pay anyone, forget it. You're never recovering, right? So when I joined, first thing I did was like, okay, let's figure out what are most important applications. Again, payroll, things of that nature. Let's start on those. Let's design a template that says, hey, if we were to lose this application, if we were to have a wide scale disaster in our data center, what are the things we need to do to recover this application? Who are the teams / people we need? What are the steps? Literally, what are the steps? So these documents would have exactly the steps. And then a couple times a year, we would test small pockets of these important applications. Now we would rank all of the applications, but we would really only touch on the really, really important ones for testing. Because again, a company's only going to spend so much money on this. So you got to really just focus on those important ones. That's what we did. And I'll tell you, it's kind of amusing because again, I started in Home Depot at 2006 and 8 years of that. And those documents are still floating around, those templates to recover some of the important systems. And my name is still in them. And I still get people like emailing me, like, because they saw my name in a document from 2007. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm never getting out of DR. I'm like, I assure you, I can't. Let me get you to the right people that own DR these days, but that's the best I can do for you. I assure you this 2007 document is likely not super useful to you any longer, but so yeah, it was a lot of process documentation of exactly the steps to recover something in a disaster, just housing that documentation organizationally, right? Like if you leave it up to folks, again, DR is not ultimately super important, nor is it sexy. So if you leave it up to people to handle their own documentation, they will never find it in a disaster. So it was a lot of like, hey, all right, please fill out the things, give them to us. We will house them. Here they are. Don't forget, here they are. You'll probably forget, here they are. And then we kind of just made sure in the testing, we again reminded everyone, here's your documentation, here it is, that sort of thing, and just kind of reiterated over and over. And also on an annual basis, hey, update, are the steps different? Are the people or teams different that you need to engage because, you know, you made a change, you moved the servers to a different data center, you did this, you did that. So it's just really a lot of that kind of, again, process and organization type. I didn't actually recover any systems. I didn't own any systems. It was just managing the recovery of them that other people were doing.
I have to say, I kind of like DR and IR. They're very, very process oriented. So you're like, okay, so we got this done. What next? What next? What next? I kind of like the, I don't know, excitement. Probably not the right word for it, but it kind of feels that way.
Yeah, we had like when I first started, it was our joke was like hours of boredom, seconds of terror, because it was like,
Yes.
yeah, do the documentation, do the doc book. Okay, eye rolling, do it. I'm like, but if it ever happens, you're going to be so glad you had it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly hours of boredom, seconds of excitement or terror. I
yes,
love that.
either way, excitement or
Perfect.
terror.
That's perfect. So, has there been any like very, very exciting, interesting case when you were doing the documentation or when you were managing the DR team?
Well, exciting is, it's funny. I was just telling this story the other day to a VP at Home Depot. I actually, in my 8 years, we never had a disaster, which is good. Again, it's insurance. It is unlikely. And our version of a disaster was the loss of a data center, not the loss of a store. We certainly have lost store connectivity, hurricanes, things like that. You know, we have 2,200 Home Depot stores. So sure, we're going to lose connectivity at stores, but this was a data center. Never happened. When I moved out of DR, within the next 6 months, we had 2 incidents where I got called in, and I wasn't over DR anymore, but I'd done it so long that it just made sense for me to be there and be helpful. And the first one, we had our air conditioning went out at one of our data centers, and it was late October. It was 2 a.m. I got the call and I was like, okay, I'm half asleep. Yep, I'm coming. Luckily, I only at the time lived 12 minutes away. So yep, coming. So in the dark, like got dressed, put on a sweatshirt, like went in, jeans, a sweatshirt, went in, and sure enough, not thinking, I walked in, it was 100 degrees in there. And I'm like in a sweatshirt, and I'm like, this is like the dumbest thing I could possibly do. But yeah, we all were, and then of course everyone was gathered. So then it got even hotter. And luckily we did not have to, in the end, we didn't have to move any of our systems and bring them up in the other location. We quickly were able to get the air conditioners going again, but it was a little touch and go there for an hour or two. We were setting plans in motion. We were like, okay, what do we do here? Where are the steps? Where's the documentation? Let's get it. But we've never had to actually fail over anything, luckily, but we've come close a couple times.
I'm glad nothing happened.
Yes.
So is that a football jersey behind you that we see?
I'm sorry?
Is that a football jersey that we see?
Oh, it is. I live in Atlanta. So this is Julio Jones jersey from the Atlanta Falcons. So I just moved, my husband and I just moved in December, and he had no place to put his beloved jersey. So the only logical place was in my office. I was like, fine, I love football. I got some footballs behind me here. I got my Dan Marino football because I'm old. I love me some Dan Marino. So I got a football team. Yep. And that's how this ended up here. I told him, I'm like, I need some more stuff around it. We have some more autographs. I'm like, I need to frame those and put them because it looks weird with just the small thing. But again, we just moved. These things take time.
Definitely, because one of our audience had the question, is that a football jersey? Do you like football? But
sure is. Sun, everything.
That is so cool. So, so far you've worked in different roles in IT, in cyber, and what would you say is the coolest thing that you've ever done, or maybe even your biggest accomplishment so far?
So those are 2 different questions, definitely. The biggest accomplishment I will say is probably, like I mentioned, we actually rewrote our cybersecurity policies and standards last year. It is something that cyber had been trying to do for about 6 years running and was not successful. Now we got a new CISO in 2019. A lot of things changed. We reorged as things happen in corporate America, right? But we just decided, hey, we've been trying this for so long and it's just failed and failed and failed. We couldn't get support, or we tried and then no one agreed with the new wording and it just died on the vine. So Probably my greatest accomplishment for my team is we actually got rid of our old policy finally. We wrote 12 new ones. They went through a big, huge approval process up to the ITVPs. Everyone thumbs up, and it was, again, it had been like 5 or 6 years in the making, so it was a big deal. That was probably my biggest accomplishment. The most fun was probably digital forensics. That was just, well, I was more of like a case manager and just helping them. Some of you may know Home Depot had a breach in 2014. So out of that came a lot of evidence that needed to be sent, right, to explain what happened. So we just had a huge, huge caseload. The digital forensics folks had to find a lot of emails, package them up, that kind of thing. So I just help with that. But in the meantime, there was also other things going on, like investigations about maybe some bad actors or what have you. And the digital forensics team had to do that. So that was fun to be a part of. Like, that was exciting and interesting. While I didn't stay there very long, because again, I'm not a hands-on keyboard type person, it was really fun to do. Like, I'm glad I got the opportunity. And I tell everybody, I'm like, if you're interested, go for it. It is really cool.
So over the last 2 summers, I've interned as a forensics and incident response intern at a cybersecurity consulting firm. And I have to say, I love forensics. It's so exciting. But when I first found out about forensics, I was really intrigued. I thought it was going to be like the movies, where they just, randomly type in stuff, they get the answers, and boom, everything's solved, everything's done. But to be honest, it's a lot of waiting around, waiting for the process, waiting for the tool to generate whatever it is supposed to be doing. And I'm like, okay, I guess. I mean, logic would follow, or logic would dictate that the tool would take some time. And it's just misrepresentation in the movies. Just saying.
Yes, the movies do. Yes. We watch movies sometimes that I'm like, because my husband is not in IT. He is more of an artsy person. And I'm just like, we'll watch things. I'll be like, that would never, ever happen. Like hackers and stuff, I'm not a hacker. I'm like, that's not how it works. But it's great for movies. But yeah, when I was in forensics, yes, waiting, a lot of waiting. To your point, tools are collecting the data. We had some times where we had to go in and check in the middle of the night, because it's like, is it done? Nope. Okay, we'll check back in another 3 hours. And then 3 hours later, nope, still not done. We'll just longer. So yes, I agree. It's exciting. A lot of fun things happen with forensics. You're absolutely right. It is a ton of waiting.
Yeah. So in your role as the Manager of Cybersecurity Governance, how does your day-to-day look like?
So my day-to-day is filled with a lot of meetings. So many meetings. As you know, I said when I started, I said we were working on documenting these controls. So the things that Home Depot does or should do to meet these requirements that we set forth in the policies and standards. So we've, at this point, documented almost 350 controls. So we've basically written, here's what we do. Here's who owns this. Oh, also, is this a requirement? Is this a regulatory requirement that we have to do? Is it not just, hey, we think we should do it? Is there some legal reason we need to do it? That sort of thing. We got to put all of that information together. So because we've got so many of those, so many meetings, because I only own 3 of the 350 controls. My team's just documenting them. We don't own them. So a lot of meetings with the owners, getting them to agree they own it, telling them better write a process for it, right? If you don't have it, hopefully you have it. But if you don't, think about it, because somebody's going to come through behind us and test this since we wrote it down. So definitely we've met with many, many, many people, both in cyber and outside of cyber, mostly in the broader IT space. So day to day, I've got a lot of meetings there. Of course, I have to meet with my team members, do touch bases, just to make sure, especially during COVID, hey, you doing okay? How are things going? Do you need to talk about anything? I'm actually lucky in that half of my team, so I'm in Atlanta, half of my team is in Atlanta and half is in Austin. So I actually kind of see my people, that half, more frequently than I used to, because we're always on, we use Teams or WebEx, but I see them actually, my Austin folks, a lot more frequently than I used to. But, you know, I do check-ins with them, make sure they're okay. We have one bigger team meeting every week. We're, of course, trying to, right now, you know, do the extra things to keep people engaged and relieve some of the stress, you know. So we'll, my team meeting in particular, we decided several months ago that we would rotate the leader of the meeting every week, because it was me every week saying, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. So now we rotate, and every week, whoever's week it is, gets to decide what we're going to do for half an hour. And we've done like online escape game, and we've done name that tune, and we've, you know, done a safe for work, never have I ever, and that sort of thing. So we do that a bit just to make sure everyone's doing okay, take a little bit of pressure off. You know, these are tough times. We're very lucky. Our shortly after COVID started, we actually implemented in our cyber, for at least the time being, no meetings before 11. Which, although it backloads our meetings in the afternoon, it's kind of nice to have the morning to pull your thoughts together and have some time to do the things. Because once you become a manager, it's hard to find the time to do the things because you're in so many meetings. So anyway, so usually my morning's pretty free for me to, you know, check on work. Again, we're really focused on those controls right now, but also people, because we wrote the policies, we get a lot of questions about them. A lot of, hey, who do I talk to about, I see this thing in the policy, who do I talk to? So we have to get, we're really facilitators. So we kind of field those questions and get the right people together to talk through them, that sort of thing. So that's really kind of what my day is full of, is just kind of directing people to the right places, working on these controls. I also manage that cybersecurity steering committee I mentioned, making sure that they meet monthly, making sure we have agenda topics, everyone's ready with their slides, you know, that sort of thing. So I work on that as well. So it's kind of a smattering of things.
Very cool. So you said half your team is in Austin. So do you get to, or before COVID, did you get to travel a lot then?
In the before times, yes. I usually went to Austin in the before times, usually once every 2 months. And I love Austin, so it actually worked out really well. I miss it. I miss going to see them in person. I am an introvert. I love being home, but at the same time, I do miss traveling to Austin. I miss seeing my team in Atlanta in person. I'm excited for the day we can do that again. I'd like to have a fun balance of seeing the people in person and being home. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, but I luckily about every 2 months I went to visit and spent usually the week there and hung out and got to spend quality time with those folks.
Cool. So our last question to you. Do you have any advice for all the people, young people that are watching the session right now?
Yes, I do. I would say, and I think it was in my bio, I tell my team this all the time: strive for progress, not perfection. Improve everything you touch and leave it better for the next people. Don't get bogged down in the weeds of the one thing, because perfection is subjective and it may haunt you because you are just focused on that one thing that you think has to be this way. So again, improve everything you touch and then move on and improve something else, because you have the capacity to be awesome, and just go be awesome and amaze people across several different things. And just, you know, like don't get bogged down in the weeds on the one thing, because otherwise, like, that's where you'll get stuck. It's also said that perfection is the enemy of done. So you will just keep at it when you can improve so many things. I know we're out of time, but at work, so at the Home Depot, we did this for Black History Month. We're also doing it for Women's History Month, where every day we get a new like snippet about somebody and like, you know, the awesome things they did. And today it was Hedy Lamarr, who was an actress in like the 30s, 40s, early 50s. And she was a Hollywood actress, and that was what she was known for. But what nobody knows, or very few people know, is she worked on radio guidance systems. And the radio guidance system is basically the basis for today's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So she obviously started from something, some base that she improved upon, and then someone came after her and created Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And like, we can't live without that today. So I'm like, that's a good example of just improve everything you touch and move on. And somebody will come behind you and possibly improve upon it even more. So that is my advice.
I absolutely love that statement, to strive for progress, not perfection. And I have written it down, and I'm going to put a big thing, I think, somewhere. I am launching a poll for all of our attendees to just fill it out and let us know a little bit about you. We are so appreciative for your attendance, whether you're live today or watching this recorded on our YouTube channel. Thank you. We hope if you're watching this recorded that you'll be able to someday join us in person every Wednesday from 4 to 4:30. We have a great lineup. We are scheduled through June of this year right now. And so we can't wait to share all of the amazing women that we are bringing with you or to you. Everything. So please be sure to follow us though on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/CybHER. And you can always find out more information about CybHER and our programs at cybher.org. Also be on the lookout for information for upcoming new programs that we'll be having on the CybHER website as well, and our social media. Christine, thank you so much for coming. We hope that the rest of you will join us next week as we have Dr. Amberine Siraj from Tennessee Tech, and also the founder of the Women in Cybersecurity, WESIS organization. But Christine, thank you for your amazing words, and we wish you a great evening.